Hi, my name is Ong, and before I give my presentation to you today, I want you to close your eyes. Now, remember the last time you had a fever? Was it hot? Was it sweaty? Did it last a long time? Keep your eyes closed. Now, imagine if that fever you had didn't go away at all. How does it feel? Are you in pain? Okay, now open your eyes. Remember that feeling that you just had. Today I'm going to be talking about Bill Gates and malaria. Now, you may be wondering what the connection between Bill Gates and malaria is. It's a good question because when you think about Bill Gates, you think about he's the co-founder of Microsoft, how wealthy he is. But did you know that Bill Gates actually has a nonprofit organization? And that nonprofit organization is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Together with his wife, he started a nonprofit organization in 2000. Bill and Melinda the Gates Foundation were inspired when they read an article by Nicholas Kristof. The article was titled, "For the Third World, Water is a Deadly Drink." The title of this article is important because we currently live in a first world, and water is a necessity. But if you live in a third world or developing country, water is a deadly drink because you drink it unboiled. And in this article, there's a story about a family, and then the mom has kids, so she has so much amount of rupees that she can spend. She can spend it on shoes, she can spend it on getting kerosene to boil the water, she can spend it on sending her kids to school, or spend her rupees on getting more food. And in the end, she decides that she can feed her family by getting more food rather than getting kerosene to boil the water. So what ends up happening is that the kids drink the unboiled water, which is the norm within that community because everyone there is drinking unboiled water, and they don't realize that that's actually hurting them. And it all has to do with sanitation. And when Bill and Melinda read this article, something inspired them to start a foundation. And then essentially they said, these are problems that we can fix, so how can we fix them? Before the actual founding of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we have to backtrack to how it originally started. It started with William H. Gates. Bill and Melinda founded that shortly after reading the article, and that was contributed to Bill's father, who also helped out during that time. That foundation mainly focused on global health, and a few years later, the Gates Library was established. That was to help improve public access to internet at public libraries, mainly geared towards low-income families, so that the public could have access. And finally, those two foundations eventually merged and became the Gates Foundation in 2000. Originally, the Gates Foundation focused on global health, education, and libraries, which it still somewhat does, but it was revised, and the revision was the focus to be more on global development, health, and the U.S. divisions. The aim of the global division is to eliminate extreme poverty and hunger. This is done mostly through funding and grants, and also teaching developing countries about farming, about how to grow flour and rice, and also about finances, investing, just teaching them so that they're able to uplift themselves. The Gates Foundation's goal, in short, is for the youth to survive and thrive, meaning youth in America that are in high school now are able to stay in school and not drop out and transition from high school to college. And youth in developing worlds, what the Gates Foundation's goal is for them to live a healthy life so that they are able to get out of that extreme poverty level. And the Gates Foundation also empowers women because they view women as this key role for societal change that will have rippling effects to the future, positive rippling effects. And the last focus that the Gates Foundation has is fighting infectious disease that spreads to the poorest countries. These are diseases that are treatable. For example, a disease like malaria, which is treatable and preventable. Now, you may be wondering why the Gates Foundation chose to fight malaria. And according to Melinda, it's because there's so little funding to fight against something that's one of the biggest killers in the world. Malaria affects over 100 different countries, and out of the 100 different countries, 270 million people are contracted with that disease, and 627,000 are now dead. And 90% of those that are dead are in sub-Saharan Africa. And out of those 90%, 77% of them are just children. So what exactly is malaria? Well, malaria is a disease that is essentially caused by parasites, and the parasites are traveled in female mosquitoes. So recall a time that you've been bitten by a mosquito and you realize that they're on your skin, and you notice it as soon as they suck blood from you, and you slap them, and then they're gone. So when they do that, essentially, they're actually tapping into your bloodstream, and once they tap into that bloodstream, that's when the viruses get out, and the parasites roam in your bloodstream, and that's when the effects start to happen. It's very, very similar to having a high fever. Sometimes the symptoms don't show for about 10 to 15 days, and usually occurs very flu-like symptoms, as if you are running a fever, having a headache, having chills. It could be mild, but then it'll progress into something else, something more severe. In some cases, it could be as severe as anemia or having respiratory distress, and it's very, very dangerous, and a lot of people that go untreated will usually die, and that is the case with what's going on in most of sub-Saharan Africa. Malaria is a treatable disease and has been eradicated in the United States and Eastern Europe. The Gates Foundation is doing its best with its innovative prevention process. One of the processes is working with other companies to come up with solutions for malaria. An example could be the Sumi Shield, which is essentially an indoor residual spray. Some mosquitoes build up resistance to insecticides. Mosquitoes, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, have more resistance to insecticides than any other mosquitoes would. So it's harder for companies to come up with residual sprays that will actually combat that resistance. But with Sumi Shield, they do exactly that, and the residuals last about 9 months, which is obviously a good thing for the fight against malaria. Another combat against malaria is the bed nest, which is really inexpensive and can last for years. It essentially is a mosquito netting that has insecticides that will repel mosquitoes. And other innovative preventions could be diagnostic tests, which essentially take to see if you have dormant malaria viruses within you that are ready to wake up. And other smaller innovative processes are baits for mosquitoes that you can leave outside to attract mosquitoes rather than having them bite you. And it's essentially just a fruit mix mixed with insecticides that will target the mosquitoes. And this is for the future, but genome editing with mosquitoes, something that CRISPR could do, that we can hopefully edit that genome for the mosquitoes and take out that malaria-carrying disease. During the London Malaria Summit in 2018, when Bill Gates gave his speech about malaria and the progress against malaria, he shows us a picture of essentially the world in 2006, about a lapse of 10-year span to 2016. And from that map that he shows us, we can see all the areas that are in red and blue. So the areas that are in red are the areas that we are, as of right now, still fighting against malaria, and the areas that are in blue are areas that we've already eradicated malaria. And it's been 6 countries since 2006 till about 2016 that the malaria has been eradicated, and other countries that still have malaria have fewer than 10,000 cases. Looking at this picture, we can see that the fight against malaria has progressed a lot, and if this keeps going, the goal of the fight against malaria, a world free of malaria, can be done. Before concluding, we're going to go back to the beginning. Remember when I had you close your eyes? Well, we're going to do that again. I want you to close your eyes. Now this time, I want you to imagine your loved one. It could be your spouse, your son, your daughter, mother, father, brother, sister. Now imagine them having a fever, and you take them to the doctors, and the doctor says, hey, your loved one has malaria. How would that make you feel? Pretty uncomfortable, right? Well, thanks to the effort of two people, Bill and Melinda, two people that decided to make a change in the world, your loved one is now safe. How does that make you feel now? Thank you for listening to the presentation.